All right, welcome to Daddy Daughter Fodder.
Where conversation meets culture.
All right, we are looking at parenting. And under parenting, there are a lot of different things, a lot of different venues and
many brackets. We asked, you answered. You wanted to know what our thoughts were on the differences between homeschooling versus public schooling. As we all know, I was homeschooled. I think that's one of the things I talk about all the time is that I was homeschooled. And most of you respond with these stupid, witty comments of, we can tell. Yeah, I bet you can tell. I bet you can tell. It's what happens when you look like you're educated. I'm joking.
I was public schooled.
Yeah.
So we have two sides of this.
Two dynamics.
So we'll talk to you about it from a parenting perspective and from a
receiving of the parenting perspective.
Yeah. And I hate to say child because
I'm not a child anymore, but I grew up with the parenting, so it's
you
kind of
my
those things.
baby.
Okay.
All right. We're through that awkward moment. So let me tell you the heart or the reason we chose to homeschool, and it was not because it was easy. So if you're considering it or you're a child, when I was a child, I was threatened with being homeschooled. My parents would threaten me and say, if you don't stop it, we're going to pull you out of that horrible public school where you're running around doing all kinds of stupid stuff, and we're going to homeschool you. And it would strike terror into my soul. So I didn't grow up as some homeschooled, there was, what's the word, stereotypes associated with it.
Homeschooler.
But we didn't homeschool because it was easy. We didn't do it because it was convenient. We didn't do it because we felt like we were capable. Somebody asked me this when we were considering, and it was so profound because we were tossing the idea back around. They said, let me ask you something. Who loves your children more than you? And the answer was nobody. And this person looked us dead in the eye. My wife will attest to this and said, then nobody is better qualified to teach your children than you. And it's true. We homeschooled our children because we believed it was the best thing to do, not the easiest thing to do.
It's not for the weak at all.
It took a lot of sacrifices. I'll be honest with you. We didn't have fancy cars and our house. We sacrificed some things, but we had each other. And that means a lot. I think there's a song out there that goes with it.
I do remember that we did spend, homeschooling was cool. Okay, I've talked a lot about it, but homeschooling was cool because I think we spent most of our middle school years, y'all did real estate, really into real estate. We flip houses. And I remember I spent most of my middle school years peeling wallpaper off a wall, painting, doing general maintenance, doing light fixtures, because that's just what we did. We went to houses and we fixed them up, and that was like for the majority of my middle school years, from 6th to 8th grade. Like I did my school, and then we went and we got in the car and we fixed up houses.
I spent her middle school experience breaking child labor laws. No, I'm kidding. But it brought freedom and real world experience.
So
crazy. Now you know how to tear wallpaper off correctly.
Yeah.
And a lot of other things.
And now I know to never use wallpaper.
So let's talk about some of the big stereotypical accusations that come with homeschooling. People would always say, hey, well, what about socialization? Oh, gosh. Pooled ignorance is ignorance. I am scared of church youth groups, okay? I've seen much less public schools. I'm sorry.
I talked about this, and I said that you actually, youth group was from 6th to 12th grade, right? And you actually did not let us go to youth group at 6th grade. Do you remember that? Do you remember you made us for an entire year? You made us like sit with our mother in service instead of going to youth group like every other kid once you graduated. You did not let us go to youth group. Do you remember that?
As a parent, this is a little secret. The number one thing that I wanted my kids to learn, the number one thing that I thought would take you further in life than anything else, it was self-control.
Yeah.
So for you to control those desires and those tendencies, I knew if you could control them now, you'll be able to control them later when you're enticed to do really stupid stuff by your peers. And it worked. It was true. I mean, that was the whole point. But sometimes the influences in our lives matter more than what we realize.
Well, I still look back and cringe and go, that was so embarrassing. But, whatever. Like, you just weren't really crazy about, because I was 10 when I was in 6th grade. I was 10 years old. You weren't crazy about me hanging around 17-year-olds.
Well, doesn't socialization, let's just be honest, doesn't socialization have more to do with personality than environment?
100%. I think we're split sincerely down the middle, where half of us, there's 4 of us total. I have 3 other siblings. And my sister, introvert. Very much introvert. Me, I've never met a stranger. I will start talking to you over literally anything. And that doesn't necessarily mean we were both homeschooled the same way. We were both put in relatively the same environments, but it really just determines what you and your personality and your strength is and what you like doing. Because if you like talking to people, you're going to talk to people. If you don't, you're not.
Talking to people. Think about this statistic. There's more people in the world right now than at any point in history, yet more people are suffering from loneliness. You can be in New York City, one of the most crowded cities on the face of the earth, and you can still be as lonely as if you were on a deserted island. So when we talk about socialization, talk about being around people and interacting with people, it's important to note that that has a lot to do with the character, with the personality, and you know, of a person, even more so than opportunities. We made sure that we were part of co-op groups, and we
were not part of co-op groups. We were part of sporting groups.
That's a co-op?
We
cooperated.
We asked about a co-op, which is where a bunch of homeschoolers get together like once a week and they do school together. And it's like a miniature like school, I guess. I don't know. It's weird.
It's like a day for somebody else to train your children.
It's weird, but the point is, we asked if we could do that, and he said no. So
we did that.
We did not do that. We did sports, and I will say we did sports, and we did enrichment days, and we actually did field trips. So we would all get together. We would all do field trips.
That's a co-op.
No.
We cooperatively went. Anyway, we went to the zoo. We did all of those things that kids are sitting back looking in textbooks at, going, wow, that's a neat animal. We got to throw stuff at it.
We went to D.C. We were actually in D.C. when, I mentioned this before, we were actually in D.C. when they were doing all of the different laws were coming down. We were in D.C. and it was so crazy to see all of these different things. The best part about homeschooling is that we got to vacation when everybody else was in school, and so everything was less crowded. Everything was much cheaper because it was the off season. It was really just an incredible experience that we got to do that because
so should everybody homeschool?
I would venture to say every child would benefit from homeschooling. I would venture to say every child would benefit from homeschooling because of the customized curriculum, because of the customized teaching method. Not every child learns the same. Not every child has the same method. But I feel like I'd venture to say every child deserves that personalized way to study, that personalized way to learn. I do understand that not every parent can homeschool, and I do understand that some kids absolutely cannot focus in that environment, but at the same time, I still think that...
I would totally disagree.
I still think that you can.
As a homeschooling parent, I would say not every parent should homeschool. If you stink as a parent, you're probably going to stink as a homeschooler. Do your kids a favor. Don't homeschool. Don't make them put up with you any more than they need to. Oof. Oh, that was terrible. Was that harsh? That was harsh, but it's true. I've seen kids taken and subjected to a homeschool environment when the parents couldn't lead themselves, much less trying to lead a kid.
I understand. Yeah.
You know, but for every responsible parent who loves their children and is willing to sacrifice, it is an incredible option. So again, I'm not trying to be harsh, but I just need to be real when I say that.
I know I do venture to say that, but I think that now we've got all these kids that were in school. I think COVID really shined the light on people.
First, we started that with COVID, or we were the pioneers.
We were the trendsetters. And
so nothing changed for us.
All my friends would be like, "How do we do this? How do you do that?" And I'm like, "Let me show y'all, ladies. Sit down." But I would show them how to do stuff like that, and I feel like one of the things that people don't know how to do, and kids and parents don't know how to do, is they don't know how to be around each other. So with schooling, they take 8-hour breaks from each other. I'm stuck with these jokers all the time. I do not get a break from them. But because of that, we learned how to communicate with them. We learned how to live with each other. We learned how to coexist together, and we learned what it really meant to be like a family. And when you're 8 hours apart, you get breaks from each other. You take breaks. You learn to almost like being away.
So what about the aspects, a couple more aspects when it comes to this, because we want to jump into dating a little bit as well, and kind of the way that looks. But when we talk about the difference in curriculum, when we talk about the worldview that will absolutely affect the entire trajectory of your life, if you have a worldview that you proceeded or you came from nothing, that means that you are operating without purpose, without meaning, morality, or reason, because there's no real reason to have any of those if you came from pond sludge, as most of the curriculum. In fact, it's illegal in a lot of places to teach anything other than that pseudoscience. And here's what a lot of people, you're going to get mad at me. I would love to do another show on evolution. And
we're doing it. We're so doing it.
Yeah, do not miss that one.
If you want to hear it too, leave us a comment.
Yeah, please, because it is such a bunk. It used to be called the theory of evolution when I was in school, and a lot of you were in school and heard it if you're some of the older folks. It is a tattered mess.
And I cannot wait to ask him these questions of it, because he has been dedicating his last 4 weeks.
Yeah, actually, the last 40 years.
Never mind, whole entire
I just want truth. I
I
think most people just want truth. But when you abdicate what your children are being taught to something that is inconsistent with your core values, your beliefs, and even reality, I don't send my kids to school to get confused about their sexuality. Give me a break. If your kid is confused about their sexuality, it's one of two reasons. One, they've either had a very bad experience or a very bad influence. Did you hear that? And you say, well, it's bad? Yes, it's bad. It's bad influence or a bad experience. And kids, young people who are struggling in that area, they would attest to that. My daughter, you said something a while back. You said, it might have been one of the earlier episodes, that I didn't walk around as a 12-year-old wondering if I was a man or a woman. I would have never come up with that on my own.
I'd never thought about that ever.
So,
and I always thought it was a taboo topic because we never talked about it, because I was like, we're not going to even put that idea into other people's minds, because that's not my place. It's a parent's place. And if you don't think that it's your responsibility, you're wrong.
Oh, here's a good one. Here's an unintended effect. My kids never knew that they should be racist. They never knew that there was class envy.
Yeah.
They never knew that you were judged based on what your parents drove to work and the kind of shoes that you wore. We can grow up with all of that cultural toxic minutiae.
The social stigmas.
Yeah.
We didn't grow up like that. We just were totally oblivious to that type of idea, because it just wasn't. We weren't taught to hate where you come from. We weren't taught to we should be groveling at people's feet over things that you can't control. We were never taught that, and that was such a blessing for us, because it helped our mental states.
Yeah, we weren't. My kids didn't grow up being ashamed of being white. And they didn't grow up looking at other kids and judging them based on the color of their skin. I remember the first time my youngest son
Pale and proud.
Yeah. Anyway, and I think that we should celebrate the diversity that God has given. And don't get me wrong, I think that's an important aspect. In homeschooling, and just keep this in mind, in homeschooling, we did just that. We didn't live in this racial bubble.
Yeah.
But one thing that helped that is we go to a multicultural, multiracial church.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the interaction, and we had commonalities that were stronger than the differences. Mm-hmm. And you don't see that in the fabric of society. America used to be what was called the melting pot.
Yeah.
I don't know if they teach that anymore. That we all gave up aspects of our individual identity in order to have a corporate patriotism and compassion and passion for one another. That is a good thing.
Yes.
We're talking about, we need all of this diversity. The problem is when you get too much diversity, you get confusion. When you get confusion, you get division. And a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. So when we talk about inclusion, there are certain ideas and certain things that shouldn't be included. Have we got time to talk about dating? Or
I actually want to put that in another segment, because I feel like it deserves its whole episode to itself.
I agree. So hopefully, if there's questions that you have about homeschooling or accusations or whatever, look, we're cool. You do whatever you want to do. You just understand this, that you're responsible, and your kids are often,
As usual, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or a topic you want us to talk about, please feel free to leave us a comment, DM me on Instagram, all of that lovely jazz. And thank you for joining us on Daddy Daughter Fodder,
where conversation meets culture. Have a good one.